Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive into the amazing life of Philip, one of Jesus' 12 disciples? This guy isn't just any apostle. His story is one of faith, bold decisions, and moments that can make anyone believe that sometimes all it takes is one encounter with Jesus to change everything. His journey wasn't about flashy miracles or dramatic speeches, but rather, it was about the small, yet profound moments of trust, action, and courage. From being just another fisherman to becoming one of the most iconic figures in the Bible, Philip's story is an unforgettable journey of growth, faith, and dedication to the mission of Christ. So, let's rewind for a bit. Picture this. Philip is just a regular guy. No crown, no riches, just a fisherman working his trade by the shores of the Sea of Galilee. His life was one of routine, the simple back and forth of casting his net, pulling in fish, and living a quiet, humble existence. But all of that changed the moment Jesus entered his life. It all began when Jesus passed by Philip's fishing spot. There wasn't a long, drawn-out conversation or flashy introduction. Jesus simply said, "Follow me." And without a second thought, Philip dropped everything. His nets, his job, the life he had always known. Gone. Just like that. Can you imagine? No hesitation, no second guessing. He didn't wonder, am I good enough? Or what will happen next? He just trusted Jesus and followed him. That's the first lesson from Philip's life. When Jesus calls, you follow. Simple as that. No questions asked. Now, I want you to think about that decision. It wasn't just about following a man. It was about following a vision, a mission that would change the world forever. And Philip, despite being just an ordinary fisherman, was invited to be part of that. What an honor. But let's not forget, it also took courage. It's easy for us to look back now and think, oh, it was just meant to be. But for Philip, that was a leap of faith. He had no idea what following Jesus meant, what was ahead, or how his life would unfold. But that's the beauty of following Christ. It's a journey that doesn't always give you the map, but leads you where you need to go. But Philip's story doesn't end with just his immediate obedience to Jesus. His life becomes even more interesting as he continues his journey with Jesus, learning and growing along the way. One of the first things we see from Philip is his incredible ability to bring others to Jesus. He wasn't just focused on his own relationship with Christ. He wanted others to experience the same life-changing encounter. This was most clearly seen in his interaction with Nathanael. Now, Nathanael was a man who was skeptical. When Philip told him that he had found the one Moses and the prophets had written about, Jesus of Nazareth, Nathanael's first response was, "Can anything good come from Nazareth?" It was a moment of doubt, of questioning, and of skepticism. But Philip didn't argue or try to convince him with fancy words. Instead, he said, "Come and see." That was it. He didn't try to force Nathanael to believe. He just invited him to experience Jesus for himself. And that's another huge lesson from Philip's life. It's not about having all the answers. It's about offering the invitation. How many times have we felt the need to convince someone about Jesus, when sometimes the best thing we can do is just let them come and see for themselves? Philip understood that truth perfectly. He didn't force Nathanael into belief. He simply pointed him toward Jesus. And when Nathanael met Jesus, his heart was immediately changed. Jesus saw into his heart and spoke to him in a way that made everything clear. It's moments like this that show us how powerful an encounter with Jesus can be. It doesn't take a perfect argument or a long speech. It just takes the invitation to come and experience the truth for yourself. But let's keep going. Philip wasn't just an evangelist for others. He was also someone who had his own growth moments. There was a time when Jesus tested Philip's faith in a big way. You know the story. The feeding of the 5,000. Jesus had gathered a massive crowd, and the disciples were wondering how they were going to feed everyone with so little food. It was Philip, one of the closest disciples, who Jesus turned to and asked, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" Now, Philip was a practical guy. He wasn't one to jump into faith without thinking it through. He looked at the problem, and like many of us would, he started thinking about the logistics. It would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite. Philip says, overwhelmed by the situation. But Jesus wasn't asking Philip to solve the problem with logic. He was inviting Philip to see beyond the circumstances and trust in the power of God. And what happens next? Jesus takes the little boy's lunch, just 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, and miraculously feeds the entire crowd with plenty left over. This moment was a turning point for Philip. He saw with his own eyes the incredible power of Jesus to provide, even when the situation seemed impossible. Now, don't think that Philip's journey was all smooth sailing. Following Jesus was often challenging, filled with questions, misunderstandings, and moments of doubt. But Philip never stopped being loyal, and he never stopped sharing the good news. In fact, one of the most significant aspects of Philip's character was his role in spreading the gospel. He was part of the group that would go on to change the world with the message of Jesus. After Jesus' death, resurrection, and ascension, Philip became one of the leaders of the early church, sharing the message with anyone who would listen. One of the most significant moments in Philip's life after Jesus' resurrection was when he preached to the Samaritans. This was a major moment because at the time, the Jews and Samaritans were enemies. But Philip didn't care about that. He preached to them, and many people believed in the message of Jesus. This was groundbreaking. It showed that Philip's understanding of the gospel was not just for the Jews, but for everyone regardless of their background or ethnicity. And that's a powerful message for us today. Jesus came for all people, and the gospel is for everyone, no matter where they're from. Eventually, Philip's travels took him to places like Caesarea, where he continued to spread the word of Christ. He also became known for having 4 daughters who prophesied, a sign of his deep influence and faithfulness to God. But as history goes, we don't know much more about his later life. It's believed that he was eventually martyred for his faith, just like many of the early apostles. But one thing is for sure, Philip's life was marked by his unwavering faith, his dedication to Jesus, and his commitment to sharing the good news. So, what's the takeaway from Philip's life? His story isn't just one of miracles and mighty works. It's a story about faith, trust, and action. It's about how one encounter with Jesus can completely change your life, and how that transformation compels you to share that same message with others. From a fisherman to an apostle, from doubt to boldness, Philip's journey is a testament to what can happen when we trust God completely and follow his call without hesitation. Philip's legacy is alive and well today. We can all learn from his life. We don't have to be perfect. We don't have to have all the answers. We just need to be willing to follow Jesus, trust in his power, and invite others to come and see for themselves. In a world that's full of skepticism, doubt, and uncertainty, we can be like Philip, bold, faithful, and ready to share the truth of Jesus with anyone who will listen. So, that's the story of Philip, one of the 12 apostles who didn't just follow Jesus. He became a key part of spreading the gospel to the world. Hope you found his story inspiring and encouraging. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the life of Philip, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And hey, keep exploring the Bible, because there's so much more to discover about these amazing characters. Until next time, stay blessed and keep growing your faith.